So we're going to do model making today. I'm going to work on the GCSE development part of my design idea. I've got a pretty clear idea about what I'm going to do today, and I'll talk you through some basic model making as part of a bigger presentation. So I will, when I come to the model making part of it, I'll speed it right up so you can see it happening in real time. So you might see some backwards and forwards motion with that. I'm going to start by just talking you through some purposes of model making, and I've got some examples here. So I've got here an example of an appearance model. This was made, I made it about 30 odd years ago now, so it's starting to fall apart. This was a model made of a plug, which was typical of an appearance model that you might take to maybe a trade show, where you're trying to explain something, or you might find it if you were doing some model making for a museum. This was done to explain how a plug was wired up, so the various components. At the time it was beautifully presented, really high finish, and it was on a glossy baseboard. It looked absolutely beautiful, and it was done prior to, a lot of computer aided design wasn't really out there at the time, so this was quite an important explanation model. So that's an appearance model. I've got a model here which is for ergonomics and anthropometrics, very much related to the fit of a product. This is made from a material called gelaton, which is a lovely pattern maker's wood. Very close grained, easy to work, very smooth finish can be achieved. So that's been spray painted up to give a neutral finish. You can see it's still a work in progress, albeit over a number of years, where the car body filler, that's epoxy or polyester resins being used to shape and to smooth it off. And it's then sprayed up with car paint to give it its finish. Now this, as I say, is an ergonomics model, so it's designed for a multi-use power tool where a different fitting could be put on the end, whether that be a saw or a drill. And then this handle was designed to give maximum leverage in a variety of different orientations, and the body of the object was designed to be handled. So this is a test model for ergonomics. It doesn't have to look good, there's no logos or branding or anything on there. That's literally a sort of a good fit. Now, it was built using wood because it needed to withstand a bit of gripping and forcing. I couldn't have made this out of card, and I couldn't have made this out of foam because it needed to withstand some loads, because obviously if it was a power tool it has to be pushed. So the material that you choose is going to be dictated by what you're using your model for. Another material that's really useful is blue foam, polyurethane foam. You can also get white foam. It's a closed cell foam, really easy to work. It gives off horrible dust. I don't think I would recommend you using this at home, particularly if you've got small brothers and sisters or children around, because the dust that this gives off is quite damaging potentially. But it does give you a really good, really easy method for working ergonomically, again, to get the fit of a product or to give you a really good sense of a 3D object. White card. White card's a really important model making material. These are models for Year 8 lighting, and what we do with that is we test the shape and the size before we go into more solid materials like metal or acrylic, and these have been made using white card, which has then been glued up using PVA, a bit of masking tape to hold it together, to give a sort of a solid-ish structure. It's really nice. You can actually bend card quite nicely around other forms, and then using white wood glue you can create a structure that's quite stiff, certainly for getting your sizes right. These were used for measuring from, so we made it up as we went along, but then we measured from these to make the next batch of products. Same project, different student, a bit more extra masking tape left on there. This was designed to see how light fell on it and to see what shadow created. So again, that kind of was helping to get the appearance right before we go into expensive materials. And then this particular set of models was designed to look at how two parts fitted together to create a table and chair configuration. It was actually it was a little bit more complicated than that, but this was all about getting your sizes right and starting to think structurally about how you would stiffen a product up and where your wood joints might be and what sort of wood joints you might use. And it was able to be measured from to give a really good sense of scale. So this was done at a scale of 1 to 5, and that allowed us to kind of measure from it for the next part of the project. So if you're using that, I recommend hitting one of your coffee companies and going stealing a few of these stirrers, reusing some of these coffee stirrers. They're a really good model making material for furniture like that. If you're doing card modelling, I would recommend, I think you've got it, I'd recommend things like old Weetabix boxes, Really good source of material there. So any cereal packet, I've got some Coke containers over there, pizza boxes. So as a model making material, this is really, really useful. In terms of the tools that you're going to use, probably a lot of it is going to be done using a craft knife. They come in a variety of different sorts. Maybe a Stanley knife. Just be careful, be aware of these. If you're going to use those, you probably want to get your hands on a safety rule and then some sort of cutting board. You could do it on a chopping board at home. It doesn't necessarily need to be one of these green cutting mats. You could do it on a chopping board. You can do it with scissors. If you haven't got knives, do it with scissors. Absolutely fine. If I'm using measuring tools, I'm going to be using squares, steel rules. If I need to scale it, I've got a scale rule there I could use. But you want to be working as accurately as you possibly can, because that's how you get the result that you can test from. So if you're not accurate, if it doesn't look right, if it doesn't feel right, if it doesn't function properly, you're not getting anything to test from your model. I tend to use when I'm model making a couple of different sorts of tapes. Masking tape. It's not very expensive. You can buy it from B&M, you can buy it from B&Q, you can buy it from all sorts of places. I use double-sided tape quite a lot, and sometimes for something a little bit oomphier, a bit of gaffer tape can be really handy. In terms of saws and files and stuff, probably something that you'll find in your house if you go into your garage or your workshop, if you've got one, is a junior hacksaw in some form or another. I would have, because I'm lucky enough to have my own workshop at home, a coping saw or a hacksaw that I might use, and abrasive, bit of green abrasive paper in this case is going to be what I'll use to smooth off parts of it. Okay, so I'm going to today create my my model for my kitchen unit. Sorry, I know I'm videoing the back of my head there a bit. I'm going to be making the kitchen unit, and I'm very clear about how I'm going to lay it out now because I've done my design drawings. So as I do it, you'll see me on this workbench behind me kind of doing some of that work. Hopefully it will make a bit of sense as I look at my modular unit. I'm going to hold a bowl, I'm going to hold a knife. I'll use certainly the blue foam and the card as my technique today. It should be quite quick because that's the point of this particular model. It's not going to have to look really good, it's going to have to work well. And then later on in the video I might show you some other finished models if I make some others along the way. So I know for my GCSE project now that I'm going to be holding a bowl. There's going to be a set of scales somewhere. I haven't got them with me, but they're going to be reasonable size. I'm going to hold 3 utensils I've decided, which is going to be a sharp knife, some sort of spatula, and some sort of spreading knife or mixing knife, and then a wooden spoon, which I don't seem to have with me. Possibly things like, maybe I've got these with me thinking about measuring cups. I don't know whether I'll use them or not. And possibly things like scissors. So maybe I need a bit of a catch-all area on my product. Alright, so in really simple terms now, I'm going to start dividing up bits of card. Remember, I want my unit to be modular. I've decided there's going to be a fold-out bit, and I want a back ridge around it. So I'm going to just kind of bang that out now and see what I end up with. So I'll just let this run for a bit. Okay, so in this video now I'm going to just have a quick talk you through model making. It's part of the generating design ideas stage for me. So like I've said before, I'm not quite developing my idea. I'm just making sure that my drawings are turned into something a bit more 3D, so I can begin to get my sizes right and everything like that, and check with my client that they work. Okay, so I'm looking at a variety of techniques to communicate. I'm making sure that I'm experimenting with different ideas. I'm avoiding sticking with one design only. Okay, I'm using a range of techniques and design strategies. All right, now if I move on to the next slide, we then looked at different options that I might include into it. So those designs have been incorporated into sketches, and those sketches have then been evaluated based on my original specification over here, and then the specification was given a red, amber, green. That helped me to make some decisions about which ones I was going to take ahead. So I moved on to a flat tray. I was thinking about these sort of fold up chopping boards that you get. I think they're really, really nice designs. So that's probably where I'm going to go with that one. The knife block was quite important. I like the idea of this sort of section that stopped everything from falling off, and possibly a bowl holder or even scales is something that I looked at there. Then I moved on to one which is a bit more sheet metal, which I thought could fold up. Quite important here is going to be my corner brackets. And actually, I think these sections where it can hold other utensils, that customizableness of it, I think is quite important. I'm not sure whether this is at an angle or whether it's square. So until I've done the models, I can't really tell you that. But I'll move on then and have a look at that. Okay. Now, I've made the models. And what I then did with the models was to that was using cardboard. I actually used like Weetabix boxes and stuff like that, and masking tape. Took me probably, I would say, I don't know, I'm guessing about an hour by the time I've done the blue foam here. But most of it was cardboard. I wasn't really precise, but I did use measurement, and I did try and get things symmetrical, because otherwise I'd have made a model that didn't really prove anything to me. So I took a little bit of care over getting that correct. And I think you need to, when you're model making, okay, do some really quick bashed out models, a bit like your first sketches, but move into models which actually tell you something that you can measure and you can take some ideas from. I actually learned quite a bit when I was doing this model making process. Now, what I'm not surprised about, in a minute when I talk to you about the evaluation of it, I'm not surprised to find that they both came out reasonably similar scores, because they're designed to do a reasonably similar thing. But both of those models taught me about some next steps, and they allowed me to show Lottie, my client, the product to see if it would work. And I took photographs. It's really important in this controlled assessment that you take photographs of the testing that you do, so that you can demonstrate why you've made changes, and you're showing that you're really meeting the needs of your user. So it was the product in use, albeit in cardboard. All right, so there's no metal, there's no wood, there's no plastic there or anything at the moment. I didn't even use glue, if I'm honest. This was literally just masking tape and Weetabix packets. So what I've got here on design one has a magnetic knife block, and there's a little magnet in there that holds the knife safely, and I think that's a really nice feature, and Lottie actually commented on that down here. All right, we've got a scoop which appeared on one of the previous designs, which allows the stuff to be dropped into a bowl. But what was important about the model is that it showed me that actually works. It's not just an idea. I know it works because Lottie did the activity. Okay. I also quite liked the fact that she tested it with a rolling pin, not a full-size rolling pin, but a kid-size rolling pin, which would have been perfectly suitable for what she was doing. So I know that this product functions. This will include a weighing scale section that you can put a bowl onto. Whether or not I then continue with that, I don't know. Second design, design 2, that's the fold-up one with the corner brackets. Worked quite nicely. These were put on for effect, really, to help me get a sense of scale and how they might work. And I found that by folding the card in a particular way, it automatically stiffened up and held in place. And I thought that was a really interesting feature for me. That model taught me that. I was cutting some holes out, thinking I'll stick a spice jar in there. And I drew around a yogurt pot and thought, actually, that's a really good place to put like a little pot or a little container. So that's what I've done. The yogurt pot that I drew around
cut the hole a little bit smaller and popped it in. And I thought you could mix up some ingredients, or you could put some raisins in there, or you could do chocolate chips, or whatever it is you're cooking, and you're ready for action. And then the other bit that I did, I'll just show you it down at this bottom section here. When I was making it, I made it to fit a spice jar, and then I realised that if I unscrewed the lid and screwed the lid back on, it actually locked into place. So there, for me, this little section, which I really didn't think much of at all, is probably an area that I'm going to develop. So these corner brackets, that section for the spice rack, were two really interesting things. Now, what I've got here that's important is that I've asked my client, so she also liked the spice jars. She thought that the knife holder was a good idea, but she didn't think it was as good as the magnetic one though. So for me, I'm going to be going back to the magnetic idea. Lottie's mum thought the idea of scales was good, but would it maybe make it a little bit too big? And also something that I don't think I've considered enough, how do I make my product hygienic? So that model allowed those conversations to happen with my user, who is Lottie, and someone who's a decision maker, which is Lottie's mum. And I've got some really good ideas from that. Now, to prove that I'm doing this with sort of data and science behind it, I actually did an evaluation chart. So it's a different version to the evaluation we did earlier. This is where I take my criteria. I call these star charts. There's various terms for them. I put my criteria from my specification. I'm always going back to my specification at the end of each arm. And I then draw a line. I score it. So 0 in the middle would be nothing. 1 wouldn't be very good. 5 would be really good. And so the further out on the arm, the better your product is, or the better that part of your product is. Okay, so both of my products were less than £25. I was happy that they'll come in for under that. When I separated my two designs off, design 1 actually is the blue one. I should have put that on there. I should show a key. The blue one is here, and then design 2 is the sheet metal one, and that's the red line there. Now actually, design 2 came out slightly lower, but I think it's got some of the better design features. So when I come to doing it, I've given a final conclusion here. So my scores from this, each design is a different coloured line. I then transfer those numbers onto a table. It's a really good way of comparing different ideas. So I could have 3, 4, 6 different types of line on there and compare all of those different designs based on those same criteria. So I might well use this same star chart later on against my final object. All right. So magnetic knife rack, scales. I'm not sure if they're always needed. So they then become something which maybe I don't include too much. We talked about the ideas and we did the evaluation chart and table together. It's important for the moderator to see that you're working with your client. Okay, so my models have taught me an awful lot, and I'm now ready to go into the development stage where I'm going to look at specific points. So that rack, this magnetic knife block, those corner pieces. I think that fold-out scoop at the front there, that I haven't drawn on any of my designs actually. So there's a lot for me to work from at this point, based on those 2 little card models that I made over the course of about an hour. Okay, it's really important. You cannot get a good grade unless you show that you're testing your design ideas with your client. I can't emphasize that enough. I've written a reasonable amount there. I could have written far more. I'm trying to keep it simple for you guys to see. So feel free to expand on each of those points from your specification based on what you found out. Okay. Now, the next section is going to be developing the design ideas. Now, this is where you really see that we're going to start talking about excellent modelling, lots of methods, design ideas fully meeting requirements, possibly some CAD work. I don't think I'm quite onto CAD yet. A range of 2D and 3D techniques. So this is the developing bit. I've got a pretty clear idea now. I'm going to go back to some sketching and then on to some CAD probably. Okay, but that's the model making bit. Model making leading to testing. Doesn't have to take you ages, but you do have to do it properly.